Good evening, everybody. Now, in the last class, we were responsible for discussing the fundamentals of environment, in which we have discussed that what is biosphere, what is ecotone. I think that we have ended completing ecotone. Now, what is niche? Now, today, first of all, we'll discuss some types of species which are related to environment. And one such a species is called as what? One such a species is called as indicator species. Second is called as, just one line for preliminary examination, not more than that. Second is called as keystone species. Third is called as what? Third is called as flagship species. Fourth is called as what? It is called as umbrella species. And also edge species. So let's see, what are these species as such? Now, when we talk about keystone species are those which are responsible for maintaining the structure of the ecosystem. It implies that if the keystone species would be removed, the structure of the ecosystem would be getting disrupted. Clear? If the keystone species are removed, the structure of the ecosystem would be getting disrupted. Or they can be also said that they are responsible for ensuring the survival of other species and determining the abundance of other species. They can be both plants and animals. I give you an example. Lemurs are just like monkeys. They are present in Madagascar in large numbers. So what happens? That the seeds of some vegetation, they have to pass through the digestive tract of lemur in order to germinate. So if you remove lemurs from Madagascar, the biodiversity of that area would be affected. Henceforth, it would be called as keystone species. Clear? Henceforth, it would be referred to as keystone species. So first thing that you have to know. Now the second thing is that umbrella species. Umbrella species means that if suppose conservation initiative for one species is taken, किसी के लिए, for any species, आपने conservation initiative start किया है, लेकिन in conservation initiative what you are doing, you are protecting the habitat of that species, then only it can be conserved. But while protecting the habitat of one species, the habitat of other species may also get protected in turn. दूसरे स्पीशीज के हैबिटाट भी प्रोटेक्ट हो जाएंगे उसमें. सो द मेन स्पीशीज हियर वुड बी रेफर टू एज कीस्टोन. क्लियर? द मेन स्पीशीज हियर वुड बी रेफर टू एज umbrella species, because within the initiative of protecting the umbrella species, other species are also getting protected in turn. So main species would be called as umbrella. Then there is a type of species which is called as what? It is called as flagship species. So flagship species means, मान लो किसी species का हमने symbol use किया है, so that species symbol has been used. Clear? Maybe a tiger or a lion or an elephant, but the intention is to protect other species as well. Then the species whose symbol is used would be called as flagship species. So what is the difference between umbrella? In case of umbrella, the habitat of other species are automatically getting protected in turn. But in case of flagship, a deliberate attempt is made, जानबूझकर, a deliberate attempt is made to protect the habitat of other species. Clear? Habitat of other species. And we can see that as far as indicator species is concerned, indicator species means what? That the purpose of using this species is to identify an ecosystem. इससे क्या होता है? Ecosystem की पहचान की जाती है. Or the purpose is to know about their condition. For example, देखो, river dolphins हैं, Gangetic dolphins को देखो. Gangetic dolphins सिर्फ और सिर्फ river के बीच में चलेंगे. Why? Because the water is less contaminated. Clear? So it means that where the Gangetic dolphin is moving, the water happens to be less contaminated. Clear? So it would be called as what? It would be called as an indicator species. और एक है जिसे हम कहते हैं edge species. Edge species stands for evolutionary distinct and globally endangered, and these are the only surviving member of their genus on the planet Earth. So they are called as edge species. Fine. So there are all different types of species. One line about all these species you have to know, and these are objective questions only. Fine. Write down keystone species. Keystone species. Let me see your queries also, if suppose any related to this is asked. Good evening everybody. Keystone species means, देखो ये आपने पूछा है. Keystone species means that these species are responsible for maintaining the structure of the ecosystem. इसका मतलब क्या हुआ कि अगर species को हटा दोगे उस ecosystem से, so structure जो है ecosystem का that would be getting disrupted. पहली बात, they can be both plants and animals. Animals भी हो सकते हैं, plants भी हो सकते हैं. They can be used for not only maintaining the structure of ecosystem, they ensure the survival of other species. They determine the abundance of other species. लेकिन अगर definition सिर्फ इस बात पर ही कहोगे कि they ensure the survival of other species or determine the abundance of species, other species, each and every species would be a keystone species. So what is different? So it's necessary to mention that they are responsible for maintaining the structure of ecosystem. Write down, keystone species are those which are responsible for maintaining the structure of ecosystem, which are responsible for maintaining the structure of ecosystem. Maintaining the structure of ecosystem. They determine the abundance and ensure the survival of other species. They determine the abundance and ensure the survival of other species. Survival of other species. They can be both plants and animals. They can be both plants and animals. They can be both plants and animals. Fine. So this is called as what? It is referred to as keystone species. Second, write down umbrella species. Umbrella species. If conservation initiative for one species is taken, conservation initiative for one species is taken, the habitat of other species, if conservation initiative for one species is taken, the habitat of other species also gets protected in turn. That is automatically. मान लो कि कंजर्वेशन इनिशिएटिव आपने शुरू किया है बाघ के लिए, टाइगर, लेकिन हो सकता है कि हैबिटाट टाइगर का प्रोटेक्ट कर रहे हो आप, तो डियर के भी हैबिटाट प्रोटेक्ट हो जाएंगे. So tiger would be called as what? Umbrella species. The habitat of other species would be also protected in turn. The main species here would be referred to as umbrella species. The main species here would be referred to as umbrella species. लेकिन फिर फ्लैगशिप और अम्ब्रेला में क्या अंतर है? राइट डाउन. बट इफ symbol of one species is used for, symbol of one species is used for conservation initiative, symbol of one species is used for conservation initiative, but but the objective is to protect other species as well. But the objective is to protect other species as well. Objective is to protect other species as well. It is referred to as flagship species. किस स्पीशी, जिस स्पीशी का आपने सिंबल यूज किया है, इट इज रेफर्ड टू एज flagship species. Flagship species. And when we are talking about indicator species is used to not only identify an ecosystem but also to know about its condition. Right now, indicator species is used for not only identification of an ecosystem, but also to know about its condition. Not only identification of an ecosystem, but also to know about its condition. And we can see that when you talk about edge species stands for what? किसके लिए है ये? Edge species stands for evolutionary distinct and globally endangered. Evolutionary distinct, so that's why it's called as edge. Evolutionary distinct and globally endangered. So you can see that these species are the only surviving member of their genus on the planet Earth, because the other members of their genus have vanished. For example, elephant is a edge species because the mammoth is no longer there. Right now, these species are the only surviving member of their genus. These species are the only surviving member of their genus. As the other species have vanished, only surviving member of their genus, as the other members of their genus have vanished. जैसे elephant. Clear? So all these are different types of species which are important to know. देखो, one term is called as what? It is called as ecological productivity. Some terms, other terms also, and then we'll today cover up biosphere reserves, biodiversity hotspots. These are questions of examination, and also try to distinguish between what is wildlife sanctuary, biosphere reserves, and also national park. Clear? So let's start with ecological productivity, and then we'll switch on to those things. Now, when we talk about ecological productivity means that you know very well that plants, they perform photosynthesis. They are autotrophs. So when the plants are responsible for performing photosynthesis, they are generating natural organic matter. क्या कर रहे हैं वो? Natural organic matter generate कर रहे हैं, जैसे polysaccharides है, जैसे cellulose है, तो वो generate होता है photosynthesis से. So they are responsible for generating natural organic matter. And the natural organic matter definitely would be stored in different parts of the plant. But the rate at which natural organic matter is generated, or in other words, we can see the rate at which photosynthesis is performed would be called as what? Would be referred to as ecological productivity. The rate at which natural organic matter would be generated, the rate at which photosynthesis would be performed would be called as ecological productivity. And ecological productivity would be depending on two factors. First is the amount of solar radiation. क्योंकि देखो chemosynthesis तो बहुत कम perform होता है, ज़्यादातर तो photosynthesis ही perform होता है. So first thing that you have to know is mainly it is the photosynthesis which is performed. So first factor which is responsible for influencing it is the amount of solar radiation. And the second factor which is responsible for influencing it is the ability of plants through which it can convert, solar energy into chemical energy so that it can be utilized in photosynthesis. So the ability of plants through which it can convert solar energy into chemical energy so that it can be utilized in photosynthesis. Clear? Now this is called as what? This is called as ecological productivity. अब क्वेश्चन यहाँ पर है, ऑब्जेक्टिव क्वेश्चन है, वेयर इज इकोलॉजिकल प्रोडक्टिविटी इज मैक्सिमम ऑन द अर्थ. सो मैक्सिमम इकोलॉजिकल प्रोडक्टिविटी ऑफ ऑन अर्थ इज एट द ट्रॉपिकल रेन फॉरेस्ट. सबसे पहले ट्रॉपिकल रेन फॉरेस्ट. क्लियर? मैक्सिमम इकोलॉजिकल प्रोडक्टिविटी. तो ये थोड़ा सा जानना है, एक एक करके क्वेश्चंस को भी देखते चलो. राइट डाउन इकोलॉजिकल प्रोडक्टिविटी. All small topics you have to pick up and that prepare for preliminary examination. Ecological productivity. Ecological productivity. It is the rate at which natural organic matter, see organic matter you can develop in the lab also, natural organic matter is generated. It is the rate at which natural organic matter is generated per unit area, per unit time, per unit area, per unit time, per unit time. It is the rate at which natural organic matter is generated per unit area, per unit time. Clear? And we can see that there are two factors influencing it. There are two factors influencing it. First is what? The amount of solar radiation. There are two factors influencing it. Amount of solar radiation and second, ability of plants through which it converts solar energy to chemical energy, solar energy to chemical energy, so that it can be used in photosynthesis. So that's called as ecological productivity. And we can see maximum productivity on planet Earth. So where is maximum productivity? That's the question. So maximum productivity on Earth is where? It is in the tropical rainforest. Tropical rainforest. Clear? Because rainfall is also very high and sunlight is also very high. So maximum ecological productivity is in the tropical rainforest. Clear? Now when you talk about that 3/4 of the earth is nothing but ocean. So when you talk about the oceans, oceans should have high ecological productivity because greater part of the earth is nothing but ocean. Oceans have low ecological productivity. Why? Oceans have low ecological productivity because of two factors. First factor is what? First factor is the solar radiation is obstructed by the water body. So that's the first factor. Clear? And the second factor is lack of nutrients in saline water. So nutrients is lacking in saline water. Lack of nutrients in saline water. So that's the reason why ecological productivity of oceans is less. But if a question is asked to you that which area of ocean is called as the tropical rainforest of ocean, the area of the ocean which is near the coast and where corals are present would be referred to as tropical rainforest of ocean. And why so? Because in this area, the concentration of phytoplankton and algae is more. And why? Because the rivers, when they come, they are responsible for deposition of sediments in these areas, which raises the nutrient content of this area, and that's why the concentration of phytoplankton and algae becomes more in this area. Clear? So this area would be registering a very high ecological productivity, right? Right, on the productivity of oceans, the productivity of oceans is not high. The productivity of oceans is not high due to two impeding factors. First, the obstruction of solar radiation. And second, lack of nutrients in saline water. So the productivity of oceans is not as high as it should have been because of two impeding factors. First impeding factor is what? Obstruction of solar radiation, and second impeding factor is lack of nutrients in saline water. लेकिन देखो, अगर ऑब्जेक्टिव टाइप क्वेश्चन पूछना हो तो they can ask you that which area of ocean is called as tropical rainforest of oceans. Which area of ocean is called as tropical rainforest of ocean? तो एक क्वेश्चन ये हो सकता है. Fine, right on. But that part of the ocean which is near the coast, where corals are present in large numbers, has very high ecological productivity. Where corals are present in large numbers, have very high ecological productivity. And this area is referred to as tropical rainforest of oceans. तो अगर पूछता है बच्चों कि which area is called as the tropical rainforest of ocean, so that area of oceans which is near the coast and where corals are present in large numbers would be called as what? It would be called as tropical rainforest of oceans. And the reason for this is what? The reason for this is that deposition of sediment takes place by rivers. Clear? Deposition of sediment takes place by rivers. So this enhances the nutrient content, and this is responsible for enhancing the concentration of phytoplanktons and algae. लेकिन अगर मान लो कि ऑब्जेक्टिव टाइप क्वेश्चन ये भी पूछता है कि व्हाट आर कोरल रीफ्स बेसिकली, तो कोरल रीफ्स आर व्हाट? कोरल रीफ्स आर deposition of calcium carbonate. Clear? Calcium carbonate. Reefs are nothing but deposition of calcium carbonate. और ये पूछे कि what are corals? प्रवाल क्या है? Corals are invertebrates. So they are marine organism. Invertebrates which belong to the class of Anthrozoa. Clear? And they are in a symbiotic relationship with algae, although ये पूछेगा नहीं आपको. They are in a symbiotic relationship with an algae which is called as Zooxanthellae. So for PCS, remember, that corals are deposition of calcium carbonate. Sorry, corals are invertebrates belong to the class of Anthrozoa, and coral reefs are what? Coral reefs are deposition of calcium carbonate. So another questions. Clear? Coral reefs are deposition of calcium carbonate. Now, there is a term which is called as succession. Succession means, when you talk about succession, it includes all, it's a process which includes all ecological changes by virtue of which vegetation gets established, or species, animal species or plant species can get established in an area. I repeat, succession is a process which includes all ecological changes by virtue of which species get established in an area. So, if suppose these species are animal species, then it would be called as animal succession. If suppose they are in the form of vegetation, then it would be called as plant succession. So, if they happen to be form of vegetation, they would be called as what? They would be referred to as plant succession. Clear? Plant succession if they are in the form of vegetation. So, we can see plant succession is basically what it is. Nothing but a process which includes all ecological changes by virtue of which vegetation gets established in an area. By virtue of which vegetation would be getting established in an area. So, that would be called as what? That is referred to as plant succession. Is that clear? Succession, plant succession can be of two types. One is called as primary plant succession. Primary plant succession का मतलब क्या हुआ बच्चों? कि किसी स्थान पे, किसी जगह पर वेजिटेशन शुरुआती दौर से ही नहीं है. हो सकता है कि वोल्केनिक इरप्शन हुआ हो, लावा फ्लो किया हो और वहाँ पर वेजिटेशन शुरू से ही नहीं हो. So establishment of vegetation in that area where there is no vegetation from the very beginning would be called as what? It would be called as primary plant succession. Clear? Primary plant succession. Type of vegetation है उसे हम लोग कहते हैं primary vegetation. And if suppose an area vegetation was present, but temporary loss of vegetation has taken place, and this temporary loss of vegetation has taken place due to reasons like wildfires, हो सकता है कि उस जगह पर आग लग गई हो, drought, then the establishment of vegetation in that area would be called as secondary plant succession. So we can divide plant succession into two types. Primary plant succession, secondary plant. आगे आपको वो में पूछेंगे. So we'll move forward. So let's discuss only which things which can be asked in your examination, otherwise not. Write down. Succession is a process. Succession is a process. Which includes all ecological changes, by virtue of which vegetation gets established in an area. By virtue of which vegetation gets established in an area. No, by virtue of which species gets established in an area. Vegetation means plant succession. Process which includes all ecological changes by virtue of which species get established in an area. Clear? And if suppose the species are animals, then this type of succession would be referred to as what? It would be called as animal succession. But if the species happen to be vegetation, it's in the form of vegetation, then this kind of succession would be called as what? It would be called as plant succession. So this would be referred to as what? This would be referred to as plant succession. So one is called as what? Animal succession, and second is called as plant succession. And plant succession can be also of two types. दो तरह के हो सकते हैं ये. First is what? First is primary plant succession. Primary plant succession. So in this case, the establishment of vegetation would be taking place in an area where there was no vegetation from the very beginning. Clear? In this case, the establishment of vegetation, write down one line about primary plant succession. Primary plant succession is the establishment of vegetation in an area. Primary plant succession is the establishment of vegetation in an area where there was no vegetation from the very beginning. Is the establishment of vegetation in an area where there was no vegetation from the very beginning. No vegetation from the very beginning. No vegetation from the very beginning. So that would be called as what? That would be called as primary plant succession. And the type of vegetation would be called as what? Primary vegetation. Right down. And the type of vegetation is referred to as. And the type of vegetation is referred to as. जो vegetation established हुआ है would be referred to as primary vegetation. Primary vegetation. And second is what? Second is secondary plant succession. Secondary plant succession. And what does this mean? It means that establishment of vegetation takes place in an area where there is temporary loss of vegetation. Write down. It means that establishment of vegetation takes place in an area. Establishment of vegetation takes place in an area. Takes place in an area where there is temporary loss of vegetation. My voice is not clear. Check it at your end, please, because from here the transmission is very clear, and if my voice is not clear, there would be concerns from other also. So please check it and let me know. Clear? Secondary plant succession means that establishment of vegetation takes place in an area. Establishment of vegetation takes place in an area where there is temporary loss of vegetation. Establishment of vegetation takes place in an area where there is temporary loss of vegetation. Temporary loss of vegetation. Clear? तो अगर मान लो किसी जगह पर ड्रॉट के कारण, वाइल्ड फायर्स के कारण वेजिटेशन खत्म हो जाता है और उसके बाद अगर वेजिटेशन एस्टैब्लिश होता है इस एरिया में, तो उसको हम लोग कहेंगे क्या? सेकेंडरी प्लांट सक्सेशन. लेकिन अगर Thank you. Now it's clear. Now, लेकिन अगर if there is no vegetation in that area from the very beginning, then the establishment of vegetation in that area would be called as primary plant succession. So one is called as primary plant succession, and second is called as secondary plant succession. Is that clear? Fine. आगे बढ़ो. See, let's cover up biosphere reserves. Biosphere reserves. Clear? Reserves. Now when we are talking about biosphere reserves, we can see that biosphere reserves, let's compare biosphere reserves with biosphere reserves with national park and wildlife sanctuaries. So when we talk about biosphere reserve, देखो सबसे पहला क्वेश्चन इसमें आ सकता है, पीसीएस टाइप का क्वेश्चन अगर देखते हैं तो सबसे पहला है कि अंडर व्हाट प्रोग्राम biosphere reserves are declared. So UNESCO has a program, and that program is called as what? It is called as Man and Biosphere Program. So biosphere reserves are what? Biosphere reserves are areas of terrestrial coastal ecosystem, and they have been declared as, कौन घोषित करता है उसे? They have been declared as reserves under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Clear? They have been declared as reserve under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. So Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO started in the year 1971. 1971. So they have been declared as reserve under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO, which started in the year 1971. And when you talk about biosphere reserves are not only meant for protection of biological diversity, but also that is meant for protection of cultural diversity. First, तो एक क्वेश्चन यहां से है क्या? First is Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. Program of UNESCO. 1971 में एक चीज याद रखो, 1971 में ही है Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO, and in 1971 also the Ramsar Convention is there. Ramsar Convention is there of the wetlands. Clear? Ramsar is in Iran. So Ramsar Convention is there of the wetlands. So in the same year. So first of all, we'll deal with wetlands later on, but first of all deal with Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. So under this biosphere reserves, and biosphere reserves are meant for what? They are meant for not only protection of biological diversity, but they are also meant for protection of cultural diversity. Clear? Cultural diversity. Cultural diversity का मतलब क्या हुआ? देखो ह्यूमंस जो हैं वो नेचर के साथ सेंचुरीज से रह रहे हैं. Let me see, suppose humans, they are surviving in nature for centuries. Fine. तो ह्यूमंस के जितने भी ट्रेडिशंस हैं, कस्टम्स हैं, कल्चर हैं, प्रोफेशन हैं, वो क्या है? नेचर से लिंक्ड है. ऑक्यूपेशन है, नेचर से लिंक्ड है. रिलीजियस बिलीफ है, नेचर से लिंक्ड है. क्लियर? तो ये सारी चीज नेचर से लिंक्ड है. सो यू कैनॉट सेपरेट योर नेचुरल लैंडस्केप फ्रॉम योर कल्चरल लैंडस्केप. सो दिस इज कॉल्ड एज योर कल्चरल डाइवर्सिटी. फाइन. और यही नहीं, we are responsible for also cultivating we are using traditional land use patterns which do not hamper the environment in any way. So that is also our cultural diversity. So biosphere reserves are not only meant for protection of biological diversity but also cultural diversity. देखो cultural diversity national park में भी नहीं होगा, cultural diversity wildlife sanctuaries में भी नहीं है. Cultural diversity protection is only and only done in case of what? Only and only done in case of biosphere reserves. Is that clear? तो पहले तो 2 लाइन लिखो, उसके बाद देखते हैं कौन कौन मेन बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व हैं. नेशनल पार्क और वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरी से इसे कंपेयर करते हैं. क्लियर? राइट डाउन. बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स आर एरियाज ऑफ टेरेस्ट्रियल और कोस्टल इकोसिस्टम. बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स आर एरियाज ऑफ टेरेस्ट्रियल और कोस्टल इकोसिस्टम which have been declared as reserves under the Man and Biosphere Program. और ये किसका था? यूनेस्को. Under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO 1971. Under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO 1971. 1971. They are not only meant for protection of, they are not only meant for protection of biological diversity. They are not only meant for protection of biological diversity, but also cultural diversity. और याद रहे कल्चरल डाइवर्सिटी का प्रोटेक्शन सिर्फ और सिर्फ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व में ही होता है. They are not only meant for protection of biological diversity, but also cultural diversity. Cultural diversity. Clear? देखो, when you talk about biosphere reserves, if we say biosphere reserves, BR लिख दिया मैंने, चलो biosphere reserves के लिए. Second, नेशनल पार्क्स के लिए, नेशनल पार्क्स NP, and then third, wildlife sanctuaries. Wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, national park and wildlife sanctuaries. We can see that as far as biosphere reserve is concerned, altogether there are how many biosphere reserves in India? 18 in India. Clear? 18 biosphere reserves are there in India. How many national parks are there? 106 in India. How many wildlife sanctuaries are there? 567. Clear? So your numbers as such. But you know that biosphere reserves are declared under the Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO. That you know. But who declares national park? State government. Who declares wildlife sanctuary? State government. Clear? State government. Fine. And if we talk about biosphere reserves, we can see biosphere reserves are ecosystem oriented. मतलब क्या हुआ बच्चों? मतलब इसका हुआ कि they are meant for protection of ecosystem. So we say that they are ecosystem oriented. Ecosystem oriented. When we talk about national parks, we can see, when we talk about wildlife sanctuaries, we can see they are species oriented. So they are meant for protection of mainly species. So they happen to be species oriented. देखिए, लेकिन देखो नेशनल पार्क में हर हमेशा थ्रस्ट एक एनिमल पे दिया जाता है, एम्फेसिस एक एनिमल पे दिया जाता है. सो इन केस ऑफ नेशनल पार्क विल से दैट एम्फेसिस is on one animal. That's why you can see that biosphere reserves, that's why you can see that national parks would be always dedicated to one animal. हर हमेशा नेशनल पार्क जो है किसी एक जानवर के लिए डेडिकेटेड होगा. क्लियर? इट कैन बी अ टाइगर रिजर्व, इट कैन बी elephant reserve, it can be a lion reserve, so it would be dedicated to one animal as such. Clear? And when we talk about how human activities are regulated, किस तरह से human activities को regulated करते हैं, if we talk about how human activities are regulated, so it is less strictly regulated. Less strictly regulated. In case of what? In case of biosphere reserves. But it is more strictly regulated. More strictly regulated. कठोर है यहाँ पर. In case of what? In case of national parks. and we can see less than, it is regulated, strictly regulated, but less than national park. National park, फाइन. सो मोर स्ट्रिक्टली रेगुलेटेड. अब यहाँ पर मोर स्ट्रिक्टली रेगुलेटेड का मतलब क्या है कि यहाँ पर हंटिंग भी नहीं होगा, यहाँ पर ग्रेजिंग भी नहीं हो सकता है, हार्वेस्टिंग भी नहीं हो सकता है. तो नेशनल पार्क को हम लोग किस चीज़ के लिए अलाउ करेंगे? National park can be allowed for what? It can be allowed for tourism, education, research. But when we talk about wildlife sanctuary, it can be utilized for harvesting and cultivation. Harvesting and cultivation. And in biosphere reserves, different areas, we can see different types of activities are conducted. Clear? So that's the difference between biosphere reserves, national park and wildlife sanctuaries. ठीक है, अब ये सब पीटी के लिए नहीं जाना है कि बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व में 4 जोन होते हैं, कोर जोन होता है, बफर जोन होता है, रेस्टोरेशन जोन होता है, स्टेबल कल्चर, ये सब आप मेंस में तैयारी करो. क्लियर? ये प्रिलिमिनरी एग्जामिनेशन में नहीं, नॉट. तो ये सारे ऑब्जेक्टिव क्वेश्चंस ही तो हैं. ऑल दीज आर ऑब्जेक्टिव क्वेश्चंस फॉर योर एग्जामिनेशन. नाउ सी, इसे कॉपी कर लो बच्चों, या तो एक स्क्रीनशॉट ले लो इसका. आई रिमूव माई सेल्फ फ्रॉम द बोर्ड. टेक अ स्क्रीनशॉट. फाइन. नाउ लेट्स सी. अब देखो 18 बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व है इंडिया में. तो पहला बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व कहां पर स्थापित हुआ? सॉरी, 18 बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स आर देयर इन इंडिया. सो वेयर वाज द फर्स्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व एस्टैब्लिश्ड? Now the first biosphere reserve established was नीलगिरीज. अब एक ये क्वेश्चन है, नीलगिरीज, इसको ये फर्स्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व एस्टैब्लिश हुआ था 1986 में एस्टैब्लिश हुआ था. It was the first biosphere reserve established and this was established in 1986. And as far as biosphere reserve is concerned, this extends in which state? Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu. और अगर देखो 17वां बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व, 17th, it is Seschalam. Seschalam is in Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh. And this is very famous for red sanders. Red sanders. Red sandal मतलब red sandalwood. So the export and import of which has been completely banned in India. So it is very famous for red sanders or red sandalwood, the export and import of which has been completely banned in India. So that's your 17th biosphere reserve, Seschalam. Clear? And the last biosphere reserve, that is 18th, which was established, Panna. And that is in Madhya Pradesh. So Panna was the last biosphere reserve established and the first biosphere reserve was established, Nilgiris. Clear? एक चीज और याद रखो, एक ऑब्जेक्टिव टाइप क्वेश्चन, तो ये तो ऑब्जेक्टिव टाइप ही क्वेश्चन है. These all are objective type questions. Now also do remember that a part of Nilgiri is called as what? Avalanche Valley. नीलगिरी को ही एक इसके पार्ट को कहते हैं क्या? Avalanche Valley. Avalanche is rapid movement of snow. There is no snow in this valley, but because of its high vulnerability for landslides, बहुत ज़्यादा vulnerable है ये landslide के लिए. That's why Western Ghat, one of part of it is Nilgiri. So this is called as what? It is called as Avalanche Valley. तो ये भी तो पूछे अगर कि कहाँ होता है, कहाँ है इंडिया में Avalanche Valley? So and we come to the conclusion that this would be in Himalayas because snow is there in Himalayas. This would be utterly wrong. Clear? So this is called as Avalanche Valley. लेकिन देखो, और ये सारे हैं बोर्ड पर ही लिखे हुए. Out of this, out of the 18, out of the 18 biosphere reserves that we have. 12 biosphere reserves out of the 18 biosphere reserves that we have, 12 biosphere reserves have been included in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve, in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. World Network of Biosphere Reserve. And what is the World Network of Biosphere Reserve? Now, UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve is for greater cooperation among nations, exchange of experience, exchange of personnel, exchange of research. इसके लिए वो स्थापित किया गया है. Clear? UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve is for greater cooperation among nations, exchange of experience, exchange of personnel. So that's called as UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Is that clear? Fine. Write down. UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve, UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve is for greater cooperation among nations. Is for greater cooperation among nations. Greater cooperation among nations. Exchange of experience. Exchange of experience. Exchange of experience. Exchange of personnel. Exchange of personnel. Exchange of experience. Exchange of personnel. Exchange of research. Exchange of research. Experience, personnel, research. Clear? So, for that purpose it is UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve is for all these purposes. Clear? So, that's UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. And we can see that 12 biosphere reserves have been added. 18 में से 12 उसमें है. Now, first is what? Nilgiris. Second is what? And Nilgiris, you know where it is. Nokrek. Nokrek is where? Nokrek is in Meghalaya. Then you have Nanda Devi. और ये सारे क्वेश्चन है. नंदा देवी कहाँ है? नंदा देवी इज इन उत्तराखंड. Then you have Great Nicobar. That's in Andaman and Nicobar Island, understood. Then you have Simlipal. So Simlipal, उड़ीसा. कोई भी उठाकर पूछ दे आपको, 12 ही हैं. Simlipal. Sundarbans. Sundarbans is West Bengal. Fine. Sundarbans, West Bengal. Then you have the 3 from Madhya Pradesh, Panna, Panchmadi, Amarkantak, So, अगर मान लो ये भी क्वेश्चन पूछता है कि फ्रॉम विच स्टेट मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व्स हैव बीन इंक्लूडेड इन यूनेस्कोज वर्ल्ड नेटवर्क ऑफ बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व, तो 3 हैं. और कहाँ से है? मध्य प्रदेश से. क्लियर? मध्य प्रदेश से. और ये याद रखो कि पन्ना वॉज द लास्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व डिक्लेयर्ड ऑल्सो and the last biosphere reserve which has been added into UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. Write down. Panna was, एक लाइन में लिख लो, इधर मैं और कर देता हूँ. अच्छा, पहले इसे कर लो, उसके बाद उस लाइन को लिखना. 10th is अगस्थी मलाया. Agastya Malaya. It stretches out in Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Agastya Malaya. 11th is Gulf of Mannar. Gulf of Mannar, that is between India and Sri Lanka. India and Sri Lanka. Then is Kanchan Janga. Clear? And that's from Sikkim. So all these are the 12 biosphere reserves which have been added in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. 12 biosphere reserves which have been added in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve. So maximum from one state is मध्य प्रदेश, पन्ना, पंचमढ़ी एंड अमरकंटक. और इसी में एक चीज याद रखो कि पन्ना बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व is the last biosphere reserve declared and also the last biosphere reserve which has been added into UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve from India. Write down Panna is the last biosphere reserve declared. Panna is the last biosphere reserve declared. Last biosphere reserve declared. And the last biosphere reserve which has been added in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve and the last biosphere reserve which has been added in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve from India, which has been added in UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve from India. UNESCO's World Network of Biosphere Reserve from India. From India. Is that clear? From India. ठीक है, एक चीज और याद रखो, कंचनजंगा को कहते हैं हैज बीन डिक्लेयर्ड एज अ मिक्स्ड हेरिटेज साइट बाय यूनेस्को. And a mixed heritage site means what? Natural significance, but also for cultural significance. Write down Kanchenjunga has been declared as mixed heritage site by UNESCO. अब ये भी एक क्वेश्चन है, mixed heritage site by UNESCO. As it is not only known for natural significance, as it is not only known for natural significance, but also cultural significance, as it is not only known for natural significance, but also cultural significance, cultural significance. क्लियर? और एक चीज और भी याद रखो, एक क्वेश्चन यहां से और भी बन सकता है. एंड व्हाट इज दैट? दैट विच इज द हाईएस्ट बायोस्फीयर. There's some disturbance. Just wait for a few seconds. Start. हाँ, सी वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन इन दिस, एक क्वेश्चन और इसमें करूं, और वो है क्या कि विच इज द हाईएस्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व इन इंडिया. सो द हाईएस्ट बायोस्फीयर रिजर्व इन इंडिया इज कंचनजंगा, because it includes the Kanchenjunga national peak also, which has a height of 8586 meters, if I am not mistaken. Clear? So this is the highest biosphere reserve in India. So not only it is a mixed heritage site declared by UNESCO, which is known for natural significance and cultural significance, but it is also the highest biosphere reserve of India. Clear? अब देखो ढेर सारे क्वेश्चन है इसमें. Now let's move from here. अब इससे आगे बढ़ो. There is concept of what is called as biodiversity hotspots. Biodiversity hotspot. Now biodiversity hotspot, the concept has been given by whom? It has been given by a gentleman. His name is Norman Mailer. Norman Mailer. And he says what? He says that any area can be called as biodiversity hotspot provided it fulfills two conditions. What is the first condition? The first condition is at least 1500 plant species. देखो यहाँ पर कम से कम at least 1500 plant species. अगर नंबर देखना है तो इसमें 1500 plant species और 0.5% of or 0.5% of entire plant species of world. Entire plant species of world. नंबर में ये एंड परसेंटेज में ये. At least 1500 plant species and 0.5% of entire plant species of the world should be endemic in this area. Should be endemic in this area. Endemic means should be exclusively found in this area. Endemic in this area or exclusively found in this area. Fine. So that is your 1500 plant species or 0.5% of entire plant species of the world should be endemic in this area. And second criteria is what? 70% of primary vegetation. 70% of primary vegetation. Primary vegetation means that which has been established through प्राइमरी प्लांट सक्सेशन. यू नो वेरी वेल प्लांट जो कि प्राइमरी प्लांट सक्सेशन से स्थापित हुआ हो. सो 70% ऑफ प्राइमरी वेजिटेशन हैज बीन लॉस्ट और इज ऑन द वर्ज ऑफ बीइंग लॉस्ट ड्यू टू एंथ्रोपोजेनिक एक्टिविटी. सो 70% ऑफ प्राइमरी वेजिटेशन लॉस्ट ड्यू टू ह्यूमन एक्टिविटीज. ह्यूमन एक्टिविटीज. अगर ये दोनों कंडीशन फुलफिल हुआ, that first is at least 1500 plant species or 0.5% of entire plant species of the world should be endemic in that area. Endemic means should exclusively belong to that area. Clear? स्थानिक हो वहां पर. And second, 70% of primary vegetation has been lost due to anthropogenic activities or human activities. Then this area would be called as biodiversity hotspot. क्लियर? फाइन. तो देखो विश्व में है कितने हॉटस्पॉट? 35, 35. एक क्वेश्चन तो ये है. सेकंड है भारत में कितने हैं? 4. इन इंडिया 4. देयर आर 35 हॉटस्पॉट्स इन द इंटायर वर्ल्ड. इन इंडिया वी हैव 4. एंड विच आर द 4 हॉटस्पॉट्स? फर्स्ट इज हिमालयाज. पहला हिमालयाज. सेकंड इज वेस्टर्न घाट्स. Third is hilly areas of India-Myanmar border. Of India-Myanmar border. Now this is separate from Himalayas. And fourth is Andaman and Nicobar Island. Everything written on the board. Andaman and Nicobar Island. So Andaman and Nicobar Island is a part of a hotspot which is called as Sundaland. सुंडालैंड बच्चों एक हॉटस्पॉट है जो मलेशिया इंडोनेशिया में एग्जिस्ट करता है, और अगर देखो तो उस हॉटस्पॉट जो है दिस इट्स एक्सटेंशन कम्स इन अंडमान एंड निकोबार आइलैंड, क्योंकि इंडोनेशिया से तो ये निकट है अंडमान एंड निकोबार आइलैंड. सो द एक्सटेंशन ऑफ दिस हॉटस्पॉट दैट इज सुंडालैंड comes into Andaman and Nicobar Island, and that's why we can say that Andaman and Nicobar Island would be called as a part of Sundaland, and this is the hotspot of India. 4 hotspot है हिमालय. लेकिन अगर पूछता है तो ये तो क्वेश्चन हो गया दूसरा, लेकिन यदि पूछता है which 2 hotspots of India are highly threatened, so highly threatened hotspots of India are what? Himalayas and Western Ghats. These 2 hotspots of India, Himalayas and Western Ghats, are highly threatened hotspots. Clear? Highly threatened. M.S. Swaminathan, he said that they are paradise of biodiversity on earth, but due to anthropogenic activity, they happen to be paradise lost. Clear? So these are highly threatened hotspots of India, Himalayas and Western Ghats. Now, on the basis of your last class, some questions have been prepared by the institute. Let's see those questions, and that question has been given to you also, transferred to you also in your group. So let's have those questions. See first question. The functional unit of environment is what? Tell me. Let me see your group also, if suppose you have any queries. There is buffering in the class. I think now the voice is clear. Refresh it. I assure you tomorrow it won't be there. We'll try to. If suppose it's on from our side, but check your end also. Check your end also. Now let's solve these questions. One by one, solve these questions. Now, first question. The functional unit of environment, what is that? A. Ecosystem. The functional unit of environment, ecosystem. Dash are responsible for decomposing of dead plants and animals. That's your saprophytes. That's also A. Saprophytes. Which one of the following are among the factors responsible for diminishing number of vultures? Now, use of loss of habitat, electrocution, all. लेकिन देखो, अगर तुम्हें पूछेगा कि which one is the main factor, then diclofenac. Which one is the main factor? Tab diclofenac. Clear? So, in this case all, the main source of energy in biosphere is what? Sunlight. Because sunlight is the main source of energy, because sunlight is utilized for photosynthesis. Who coined the term ecology? कुछ अगर मान लो मैंने डिस्कस नहीं किया है तो क्वेश्चन में मिल जाएंगे. Who coined the term ecology? Now that is your Ernest Haeckel. C. Ernest Haeckel. Vulture conservation and breeding center is situated in which among the following district of Madhya Pradesh? That is your Bhopal. We have discussed केरवा है भोपाल में जगह जहाँ पर जटायु स्थापित है. Which ministry is associated with the initiative of vulture conservation and breeding center? That is Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Clear? B. Ecotone is single ecosystem, demarcation zone between two ecosystem, ecological niche, none of the. So what is that? Now ecotone is what? Ecotone is nothing but the demarcation zone between two ecosystem. The demarcation zone between two ecosystem. And consider the following. अब देखो इसे. Consider the following statement. Diclofenac is toxic to vulture. Diclofenac is responsible for kidney failure among vulture. विच वन ऑफ द अवर स्टेटमेंट इज आर इनकरेक्ट, तो दोनों ही तो करेक्ट है, क्लियर। तो इनकरेक्ट है क्या, नथिंग, नीदर वन और नॉट टू, बिकॉज बोथ आर करेक्ट। द प्राइमरी कंज्यूमर्स आर कौन, तो herbivore would be the primary consumer. Why? Because they are responsible for feeding on the primary producers, autotrophs, grasses, plants, etc. An ecotone includes all living an ecosystem includes all living organism, non-living objects, both living and, so the C, both living and non-living components. Because what you have studied in the last class that biotic and abiotic component are there. Adaphic factors include in abiotic component. So that would be called as abiotic component, because you know that which is biotic component. Who interacts with, in between we have missed one, who interacts with environment and modified it according to their need? There is only one person, that is the Homo sapiens, humans. So answer is D. Answer is D. Fine. And a group of organisms, usually of the same species occupying a definite area during a specific time, is known as what? It is known as population. Now, which one of the following terms describes not only the physical space occupied by an organism, but also its functional role in the community? You know very well. That's your ecological niche. Ecological niche. And suppose I frame a question like that, in which district of Madhya Pradesh, in which district of Madhya Pradesh the Ghadial hatching and breeding center has been established? Hatching and breeding center has been established. तो क्या आंसर होगा बच्चों इसका? और that hatching and breeding center is called as Deori Ghadial Hatching and Breeding Center. So it has been established in which district? It has been established in Morena district of Madhya Pradesh. Morena district of Madhya Pradesh. Clear? So with these words, we conclude the class of today. Thank you so much. Tomorrow we'll discuss what? We'll discuss mega hotspots, eco-sensitive zones, a process called bioremediation, phytoremediation, छोटे में, a process called bioremediation, phytoremediation. Then we would be responsible for discussing what? Okay, fine. Morena, very good boys and girls. बहुत अच्छे. Please share a PDF of today's or tomorrow's class of ecology. Both you want. Okay. I'll ask him. Some person, because I don't have PDF. You see, my PDF is here in my head. Here you cannot look into. So someone would be writing, and as soon as he or she writes, he would be sharing the PDF with you. Clear? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Pandit ji.